Hey guys, hope you're doing well. Just wanted to talk about the mentally ill and what they go through and what they've gone through in history. They've always been experimented on and oftentimes in the worst ways, experience abuse from the industries. Anthony has talked about the untold history when the industry was giving quicksilver when everyone went to the doctor's offices, which is mercury infused water, and people would leave and they would become insane essentially, and families would be destroyed. And he talked about how people stopped going to the doctor after that, and the medical industry was on life support. People weren't going to the doctor, and the only people during that time who were being treated by medical doctors were in the insane asylums, right? So the mentally ill were always received the worst of the industry. Lobotomies, electric shock therapies, all that crap. But young girls, just for being emotionally acting out or whatever, would be put into a hospital and given lobotomies, and this happened to tens of thousands of young girls. So things have gotten a little bit better now, but there's still some really scary trends that are being targeted to people with mental health challenges, which is very disturbing to me. Someone who my grandmother spent her life drugged in a mental hospital, basically care facility, and I struggled for over a decade with schizoaffective disorder, lost my 20s into my earlier 30s, and now I've been medication free for over 12 years with medical medium information, and I'm living my life and have an opportunity at life which doesn't exist out there really other than with medical medium information. So I wanted to talk about two kind of dangerous trends that are being targeted to the mentally ill people. One of them is psychedelics. It's becoming popular now. I just saw in the news that some states were approving studies for using psychedelics to treat mental health challenges. And this is terrifying to me, given that part of what triggered my mental illness to begin with was when I had experimented with marijuana in high school and at the end of high school, and it was laced with a psychedelic without me knowing one time. So I went to a concert with some friends. Friends from another school brought the grass or whatever, and it was laced, and I didn't know. I took it. I had severe hallucinations, and for a few years after that felt very mentally unwell. Didn't know if I was dreaming or not, or awake. Really stuck in my head, and I see that as a huge trigger for causing my mental illness symptoms. And now they're saying they're trying to use it to help treat it, which is really dangerous because it's a toxic substance that's toxic to the brain. There's a great chapter on psychedelics in the Brain Saver book, Medical Medium Brain Saver book. Everyone should read that. Greatest health book of all time. And it's just a great chapter that talks about how it's toxic. It's a toxin that's basically harming the brain, putting you into survival mode. And there was actually recently, Sean Ryan went on the Tucker Carlson podcast and talked about how he had done ibogaine recently, and he's basically been in hell for weeks and it feels like he's being attacked by demons. So it makes mental health worse. Severely worse. It's just a terrifying idea, and it's upsetting that once again the powerless people with mental health struggles are being targeted and basically put into a more powerless situation. We have a hard time enough functioning in this world, working, having enough resources, surviving. Why don't we just damage people more so they're more helpless and their lives are shortened? And it's just really, really sad and typical to be expected from the industry. The industry's just gotta find ways to harm us. And then the other trend that I want to talk about is also an untold history that Anthony talks about, the protein agenda, right? Protein, the whole reason everyone's thinking about protein all the time is on purpose. There was an agenda back in the day, and it comes from darkness, and it keeps people sick. It ensures that people get sick. It ensures that trillions of dollars flow into the medical industry, and that's why everyone's thinking about it all the time. That's why it's labeled on everything. That's why it's such an obsession and such a brainwashing at such a widespread scale, because it's that evil. It's that dark, basically. So it's directed at everyone, but it's also now being directed at people with mental health challenges, and it's really dangerous for people with mental health challenges. Aside from all the physical problems that it's going to cause eventually possible strokes, possible heart attacks, possible kidney disease, possible blood sugar problems, eventual Alzheimer's or dementia. It's going to worsen physical health, undoubtedly, but it's terrible for mental health, because when someone's struggling with neurological symptoms, and mental health challenges are neurological, right? It's brain, central nervous system. When someone's struggling with neurological challenges, they need lots and lots of healthy glucose, ample amounts of glucose, healthy glucose, right? Raw honey, bananas, steamed potatoes, healthy sources that the cells need to function, because our cells run on glucose. Our brain runs on glucose. If our brain doesn't have glucose for 5 seconds, it starts to die. Brain cells start to die. So our liver stores up glucose in the form of glycogen. Our brain has glycogen. That's what the brain is compressed glucose, which is glycogen storage. And it's what our body lives on. That's why when you go to the doctor, they take your blood sugar to make sure you can live. You need blood sugar to live, right? So when blood sugar gets too low, people go into a coma, right? So it's common sense, but I mean, when I was a kid, it was people just knew you needed blood sugar. There was a diabetic kid in the class. There's a risk of taking too much insulin because your blood sugar drops too low, or you go into a diabetic coma or something like that. I remember him talking about it, but it was just common sense that your brain needs glucose to think, to breathe, to talk, to walk, to anything, right? Muscles to move, anything. So someone with neurological challenges needs extra glucose. I eat tons of glucose every day, tons of bananas, tons of raw honey, tons of steamed potatoes. I just eat tons and tons of glucose every day, and I need it to function because I had such traumatic experience with my nervous system and so many years of struggles with my nervous system. So that's one reason the high protein is terrible. The other reason is, of many, is that the high fat oxidizes the toxic heavy metals, right? And toxic heavy metals are medical medium information, primary cause of certain mental illness symptoms. And the high fat causes the metals to oxidize, run off into nearby tissue, worsening the condition over time, worsening symptoms over time. Starves the brain of glucose and oxygen. When you have high fat in the bloodstream, oxygen lowers as well. It's just one of the worst things for long-term health. Some people who aren't that sick clean up their diet, take out processed foods, do a little high protein, they feel a little bit better temporarily, but you pay for it later, you end up sicker later, right? And for someone with serious mental health challenges, it's not a good idea. It's a terrible idea. It's not based on anything real. There's no science behind it. These health hacks and trendsetters are just making up theories. There's nothing that's been measured in the body. So it's just a man-made terrible idea that originates from darkness that's meant to make us sicker and keep us sick. So just trying to defend the chronically ill, and specifically people with mental health challenges, because life's hard enough. We have enough challenges. We don't need some dark man-made agenda making things harder for us. So just know that healing is possible. The medical medium information is the answer for symptoms, healing symptoms, for mental health. The Brain Saver book is incredible. The first medical meeting book is amazing as well. There's a chapter in there on freeing the brain of toxins. That's the book I started healing with. And like I said, medication free for over 12 years. I haven't heard of that being done before with schizoaffective. But there are lots of people in the community who are healing and have healed mental health symptoms like depression, anxiety, bipolar, and a lot of people healing. So just it just there's after years of struggling and swimming in the misinformation out there in health, there are no words to describe how amazing it feels to have a solid foundation of truth in the medical community information and a way to be mentally healthy and stable and live a good life. So I wish you the best. God bless you.